that you acquire Torah is by, speaking and delving in Yonim in Torah and speaking about it, discussing it. So that brings a special simcha in Torah. The Rebbe points out that specifically at Kийнus Torah, when people get together to speak in Torah, to learn Torah, to discuss Torah, that continues the simcha of Simchas Torah into the day-to-day, which is what we danced about in Simchas Torah. So Be'ez Hashem, we'll start the Kийнus Torah with Rabbi Menachem Mendel Marlow, Shliach in Mונטריאול West. He's going to speak in the inyan of Havdalah in Motzei Yom Tov.
Yeshkech to both of Shmuels, keeping us involved in the Rebbe's Inyanim. So I thought that connected to last night, we made Havdalah Motzei Yom Tov. We'll speak a little bit about the nusach that we say during Havdalah. So there's a Gemara in Masechta Chulin. Amr B'Zeira. Yom Tov shecholi is be'emtza Shabbos. Yom Tov fell in the middle of the week. Omer hamavda ben kodesh l'choil ben l'cheshach ben Yisrael l'amim ben yom hashvi l'shesh yismi ha'maisa. You say the regular nusach Havdalah. My timer. What's the reason for that? Now, what's the kasha of the Gemara? So Rashi explains. Find the Rashi. Afilu hachi, even though it's the middle of the week, Amrinan ben Yom Hashvi, you still say between Yom Hashvi and not Yom Hashvi. You still say Yom Hashvi l'Sheshes Me'amaisa. Technically, it's the middle of the week. You don't have Sheshes Yomim. You don't have Yom Hashvi. Still, you say it. What's the answer to the Gemara or my timer? Say there Havdalah is Humayna. Because an Havdalah is going through a different various examples of Havdalahs. So what's interesting is that there's a Gemara in Pesachim which seems to have a different reason why we mentioned Ben Yom Hashvi l'Sheshes Me'amaisa, which is not Havdalah. So the Gemara says, Pasach v'Amar, so they invited Rava's house and was making Havdalah, and he said, Hamavda ben kodesh l'chol ben l'cheshach ben Yisrael l'amim ben yom hashvi l'sheshes me'amaisa. Rava made Havdalah like the regular nusach. Amr lei lama lacha kulei hai. Why do you say that all these mistakes of Havdalah? V'amr Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav Hamavda ben kodesh l'chol zui Havdalah Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi would just say Hamavda ben kodesh l'chol. Amr lei anak hasvir ali. I hold like this. If somebody is doing the minimum amount of Havdalah during Havdalah, the nusach should be at least 3 different types of Havdalah, and the maximum is 7. So therefore he says, I did 3. But if you count them, it's not 3. Rava was actually saying 4. He says, and then in addition, Ben Yom Hashvi l'Sheshes Me'amaisa. So he ended up saying 4 Havdalahs. And like Tosfos explains that there's it's specifically either 3 or 7. So why did he do 4? If he's being Meisif, he should be Meisif all the way till 7. So he says, Ivra Ben Yom Hashvi l'Sheshes Me'amaisa me'in chasimahi. Ben Yom Hashvi l'Sheshes Me'amaisa is not an example of one of the Havdalahs. The reason why I said Yom Hashvi l'Sheshes Me'amaisa is because it's me'ein the chasima. I'm finishing off the bracha Baruch Atah Hashem Hamavda ben kodesh l'chol. And there's a klal, like the Gemara says right afterwards, from Yehuda Shmuel, Hamavdil tzarich sheyir me'ein chasima sama chasima, say in general. And therefore, I wanted to say me'ein chasima towards the end of the bracha. So therefore, what's me'ein the chasima of kodesh l'chol? Yom Hashvi l'Sheshes Me'amaisa. So how come the Gemara in Chulin says that the reason why the whole question is Yom Hashvi l'Sheshes Me'amaisa, and the answer is Seder Havdalahs. Yom Hashvi l'Sheshes Me'amaisa has nothing to do with Seder Havdalahs. It has to do with Me'ein Chasima. Also, if you go weiter in the Gemara, Amra B'Shua ben Levi, Hamavdil Tzarch Sheyomer Me'ein Havdalas Hamuris B'Torah. The Havdalas that we say by Havdalah should be based on the different Havdalas that we are saying in the Torah. What are the Havdalas? The Gemara gives examples in the form of a question. Meisvei say the Havdalas Heichaimer, Hamad ben Kesh L'Chaben El Chesh Ben Yisrael La'am Ben Yisrael Shesh Ben Maisa, Ben Tomer L'Tor, Ben Hayon L'Charava, Ben Ma'am El Yonim L'Mayim Atachtoinim, Ben Koinim L'Levim Yisraelim L'Chaisim B'Seder Bereshis. So there's 7 different types of Havdalas that are mentioned in the Torah that a person is able to say by Havdalah. Now, regarding the Yom HaShvi L'Sheish Yismei HaMaisa is mentioned as number 4 in those 8. There's a machlokes about the last one. So what's interesting that I want to bring out from this point of the Gemara is that Tosfos asked a question. If Yom HaShvi L'Sheish Yismei HaMaisa is supposed to be at the end, how come when the Gemara is mentioning it over here, it's number 4? So Tosfos brings the Rashbam, who says that for the people that want to finish Havdalah after 3 different types of Havdalahs, so you put Yom HaShvi L'Sheish Yismei HaMaisa at the end. So it depends on what your Seder is. But then Tosfos has another question. According to this, maybe there would be a better Havdalah to put at the end than Yom HaShvi L'Sheish Yismei HaMaisa. So Tosfos answers that Yom HaShvi L'Sheish Yismei HaMaisa is Me'ena Chasima, whether you're finishing off the bracha Hamad Ben Kodesh L'Choil, which is one opinion, whether you're finishing the bracha and saying Ben Yisrael La'amin, that the Havdalah is between Yidden and other nations, and whether you're finishing off the bracha with Seder Bereshis. No matter how you finish the bracha, Ben Yom HaShvi L'Sheish Yismei HaMaisa is going to be connected to the Chasima. So I'm trying to figure out what is this Yom HaShvi L'Sheish Yismei HaMaisa Havdalah that the Teichen works perfectly to any Chasima that we're doing. It's almost like there's something else with Yom HaShvi L'Sheish Yismei HaMaisa that makes it a perfect ending for the Havdalah. To take it a step further, the Ran brings a question according to this from Rabbeinu Yechiel, that if the whole reason why we're bringing Yom HaShvi L'Sheish Yismei HaMaisa and Havdalah is because it has to be Me'ena Chasima. So when we say Atachin Antanu in Ma'ariv, when we make a Havdalah in the middle of Tefillah, we shouldn't be saying Yom HaShvi L'Sheish Yismei HaMaisa because there's no Chasima, there's no bracha that we're saying at the end. Yet we find in our Nusach, in Atachin Antanu, Yom HaShvi L'Sheish Yismei HaMaisa. So the Ran tries to give an answer, and he says that L'chayra, it's based on the machlokes in the Gemara whether it has to be Me'ena Chasima or Me'ena Psicha. But he finishes off with a question that we paskin, like Rabbi Yehuda or Shmuel, that it has to be Me'ena Chasima. And one last point is that in the Rashi from Anchulin, when Rashi was explaining the question that we still say Yom HaShvi L'Sheish Yismei HaMaisa, the way Rashi explains the question is Rashi points out that we say Yom HaShvi, even though Yom HaShvi is not connected over here, but Rashi doesn't mention anything about Sheish Yismei HaMaisa. It's almost as if Rashi is implying that Sheish Yismei HaMaisa is something that's connected over here. And also, technically, why isn't Yom HaShvi Sheish Yismei HaMaisa one of the Havdalas Hamuris B'Torah? We said even in this week's parsha, by Varech Elokim es Yom HaShvi v'Yikadesh Yisai. Hashem made a distinction between Yom HaShvi and the rest of the days of the week. So I want to try to borrow a svara that the Rebbe brought up in Likutei Sichos. Some of us who are doing the project Likutei Sichos learned this few parshas ago in Parshas Emer. So in Parshas Emer, the pasuk says, "Sheishes yomim te'asam malacha, v'yom hashvi tishbois, and v'yom hashvi shav shabbos mikra kodesh k'malacha le'sas." So the question that the Rebbe says that Rashi is addressing is that l'chayra there's no connection between Shabbos and the Moedim. We already know Shabbos before. Why does the Torah have to repeat again Yom HaShvi and Sheshes Meyam Ma'aser right before the Moedim? And what the Rebbe suggests is that there's really no kasha why Shabbos is being mentioned right before the Yom Tov. Because technically Shabbos is also a Yom Moed. Shabbos is also a Yom Tov. What Rashi's question is really is why does it also mention Sheishes Yom Teyos Malacha? If it would just say Yom HaShvi Tishbais, it fits in with the Moedim. But how does Sheishes Yom Teyos Malacha fit in with the Moedim? And what the Rebbe explains is that Sheishes Yomim is not just 6 actual days, but Sheishes Yomim is a mitzias of the Sheishes Yomim that we're allowed to work. And it represents all the days that we're allowed to do malacha, teyos and malacha. Any day that we're allowed to do malacha is included in those Sheishes Yomim. So if that's the case, perhaps that Sheishes Yomim and Yom HaShvi, like the Rebbe points out over here, are a havdalah bifnei atzma, are technically, although they're only being mentioned me'in achasima, their toichin is a perfect toichin of havdalah, which fits on Yom Tov as well. Because even though Yom Tov doesn't have Sheishes Yomim afterwards, but it's still a havdalah between the concept of Yom HaShvi, Yom Moed, and Sheishes Meyam Ma'aser. According to this, we can explain why by Atachen Antanu, even though there's no Me'ina Chasima, there's no bracha, we still say Yom HaShvi Sheshes Meyam Ma'aser. We can explain why Rashi mentions Yom HaShvi, even though it's not Shayach Hacha, right? But the Rashi doesn't mention anything about Sheshes Meyam Ma'aser because perhaps Rashi Taka has this Yisod that the Rebbe mentions that Sheshes Meyam Ma'aser is the Inun B'fnei Atzma. It's not a shadow why there's not Sheshes Yomim. Because Sheishes Yom is just what Sheishes Yom represents, and possibly so according to this we read the Gemara differently, but possibly it's even a pasuk Yom HaShvi Sheishes Meyam Ma'aser. So when the Gemara, back to the Gemara in Chulin, when it's mentioning that Omer Zeda, when there's a Yom Tov Shecholius Be'emtza Shabbos, you say Hamad B'Kesh L'Chav Ben Yisrael La'amim. Sorry, Hamad B'Kesh L'Chav Ben Yisrael La'amim Yom HaShvi Sheshes Meyam Ma'aser. My timer. What's the reason why we're mentioning Yom HaShvi Sheshes Meyam Ma'aser? Because Seder Havdalos Humayna. Because we're mentioning all the different Seder Havdalos, and according to this, the Gemara is saying Yom HaShvi and Sheshes Meyam Ma'aser is also from the Seder Havdalos, even though technically it's Me'ina Chatzima. But it's a me'in, it's not just me'in chasima, it's also a seder havdalah that would fit in perfectly on a day we're making havdalah between Yom Tov and Emtza Shavua and the rest of the days. We should make the havdalah on Golos and should celebrate together.
Go ahead. An interesting in connection to what he spoke about in the Havdalas. So I saw an English letter of the Rebbe. He was mentioning to someone, why do we need a mechitza and a shoe? What's the point? Let's say if only men daven in the shoe. What's this thing as a shoe needs to have a mechitza? The Rebbe says that when a Yid walks into shul, which is a center place for Yidden getting together, they should see that there's Havdalas. In Yiddishkeit, there's divisions. You have to know where you're at, which side you have to be on. Interesting letter of the Rebbe. No, there's no need, but that's a way a shul is built. Downstairs. Anyways, for the next darshan, we have Rabbi Zirkin. Emes, Rabbi Levi knew was supposed to speak, but he wasn't able to join us. Not feeling so well, so Rabbi Zirkin, I called him today. As soon as I found out that he wasn't able to come, Rabbi Zirkin was ready to come. He pulled something off his sleeve, Rabbi Shmuel Zirkin. Rabbi Shmuel Zirkin, Shliach of the Rebbe in Kotz and Luke. He's going to speak about the union of Netilas, washing the hands before Kiddush or after Kiddush.
Yeah. So, the union of making Kiddush on Shabbos and Yom Tov. So we all know the pashas that you make Kiddush and then you wash and then you call it you suda. But in this union of whether you should make Kiddush first, there's a big discussion, and there's an opinion that holds that you should wash before you make Kiddush, and then you make Kiddush, and then you go right into eating the bread and making the amotzi. So I want to look at the Alter Rebbe, and then we'll see that the Alter Rebbe uses a certain lashon which is different than the Mekayres, which seemingly the Alter Rebbe's makar is from the Ramah. It's a machlokes in the Beis Yosef, Mechaber and the Ramah, and it seems like the Alter Rebbe is just repeating the words of the Beis Yosef and the Ramah, but he changes the word. And we want to understand why did he change this word and how does it affect us, and it makes a huge difference to halacha. And then we're going to try to understand what's the reason why the Alter Rebbe changes and says a different word, and that Bechlal he has nothing to do with the Ramah. You could say that he's not at all quoting the Ramah, he's quoting the Mekayres where the Ramah took it from, and therefore he says it differently. And then we'll bring it Lamaisa. So this is in Simon Reish Ayin Aleph. Okay, Simon Sifchav Chav Gimel. After you make Kiddush, you wash your hands for the Suda. If you forgot and you wash before Kiddush, if you, by mistake, you wash before Kiddush, you shouldn't make Kiddush on wine, you should make Kiddush on the bread, on the challah. Because by the fact that you went and washed, you showed that for you, the bread is more chaviv, is more precious, is more something that you would rather. Maybe you're hungry, you want to go to the bread right away. It's on the kaddish al chaviv, and you have an obligation to make kiddush on what's more chaviv, what you have a desire towards. That's the first opinion. There's another opinion by that even l'chatchila you're able to wash before kiddush. But kiddush is not considered a hefsek. Either you wash and you're going to make kiddush and you're going to make a moitzi. Kiddush is a hefsek, not a hefsek. Why? Your kiddush is for the meal. You can't eat without kiddush. So therefore, it's for the meal. So therefore, you have to make kiddush. So it's connected to the suda. So it's not a hefsek. The ikar kisvara achrena. The ikar out there was saying the halacha really is primarily like the second opinion, that you can wash, make kiddush, and then eat. This is the widespread minhag in our countries. Besides for Pesach, because Pesach would definitely be a hefsek, because you can make kiddush on bread on Pesach. You need to drink that dalet kaisus. So you can't make kiddush on the matzah. You have to make kiddush on the wine. So if you're going to wash and then make kiddush on the wine and then go, what you have to say magid, you have orchatz and yachatz and magid. It's such a big hefsek that definitely doesn't work. But then the Alter Rebbe says that if someone wants to be machmer and not to wash until after Kiddush. This is a good minute. Don't be moicha. Don't tell him off for the fact that he's going against the minute, because we just said that the widespread minute is that first you wash, and then you make Kiddush, and then you eat the challah. You make a moitzi. You don't have to tell him off and tell him he's doing something wrong because he's going against the minute. Because he wants to answer, I want to do like everyone. Everyone agrees that you go first make Kiddush, and then you could wash, and then eat moitzi. Make a moitzi. But according to the first opinion, you can't do that. In the first opinion, if you wash, then you should make Kiddush on challah. You should make Kiddush on the yayin at this point, according to the first opinion. So, if you want to be Yotzel L'Divei Akol, it's much better to first make Kiddush, and then wash, and then make a moitzi, eat the bread. Because in the first opinion, we said that if you wash, then you showed that what's more chaviv, the bread. So you have an obligation to make Kiddush on what's more chaviv. You have to make Kiddush on the bread. You can't go now and make Kiddush on wine. So therefore, if you follow the second opinion, where you wash, you make Kiddush on wine, and then you eat the bread, you weren't Yotze according to the first. You didn't do the right thing according to the first opinion. So therefore, it's better to follow the first opinion, because even the second opinion agrees that that's fine. You can make Kiddush and then wash and then make a moitzi. Everyone agrees that that's fine. But that's something which is the divrei akol. So therefore, it's better to follow that opinion, that minhag. And obviously that's what we do, right? And that's, even though it says minhag pashut, is like the second opinion. Well, a lot of people didn't even hear of this opinion that you could first wash and then make Kiddush. Really, it's much more convenient, especially on sukkahs, right? Everyone's going into the sukkah. It's a little squashed. Everyone's trying to fit themselves in. If everyone could wash beforehand, go sit in your place, make Kiddush, and go right on moitzi. It's much more convenient. And oftentimes, when I have guests, it's easier if everyone washes first. But the point, we don't do that way. Right? Everyone has to go to their places, make Kiddush, and you have to get up and come back. But that's the reason is because you want to follow the V'yakal. So now, if we look at the Makar, seeing the Alter Rebbe is quoting machlokes between the Mechaber and the Ramah. So if we look in Siman Reish Ayin Aleph Sif Yud Beis, he says, okay, I'm not going to quote the Mechaber because it's pretty much the same as the Alter Rebbe, but the Ramah is different. He says, Yesh Aimim L'chatchila Yesh Litol Yoda Kedem HaKiddush L'Kaddish Shal Yayin. L'chatchila, you could make Kiddush. Yesh Litol Yoda Kedem HaKiddush. You could wash before Kiddush, and then make Kiddush on wine. This is the minute. In the Shanik Rak B'Lil Pesach, Mrs. Brosen, it seemed like it's exactly the same thing, right? I didn't see anything different than what the Alter Rebbe said. That you can make Kiddush, wash before Kiddush, but there's one more different. The Ramah says the Chatchila Yesh Lito. The Alter Rebbe says Yochel Lito. One difference: Yesh or Yochel. Yesh Lito means you should do that. That's how you should do it. Yesh, this is what you should do. You should wash, then make Kiddush, and then make a moitzi. This is not a yochel that you could do that if you want. It's an option. The Alter Rebbe says yochel. It didn't say you should do that. How do I know that this is a true deal? Because the Mishnah Berurah clearly goes on that. Yes, he explains why does the Ramah say this? He explains the Sfirlahu, the Ein Kiddush Mikra Hepsik. Okay, this is what Alter Rebbe says. Why is it not a Hepsik? Because it's Tzarech Suda. And then he says, Sfirlahu the Toy Lin Kein L'Chatchila. This is the proper way to behave, to act. Why? Because there are times where you don't have wine and you're making Kiddush on bread. Then you have no choice. You must wash your hands before Kiddush because you don't have any wine. You have to wash and then make Kiddush on bread. So in order not to make differentiation between whether you make Kiddush on wine or you make Kiddush on bread, which if you make Kiddush on wine, you would have to make Kiddush and then wash. And if you make Kiddush on bread, you would have to first wash and then make Kiddush. So the easier way is to make it a general rule. You first wash, then you make Kiddush, and then you even if you have wine, just make it universal. That regardless, you should always make Kiddush, wash before Kiddush. So this is clearly he's explaining that this is what the Ramah holds. That this is how you should do it. This is the correct way to do it. The Alter Rebbe doesn't say that this is the correct way to do it. On the contrary, the Alter Rebbe says that it's better to do it the other way, right? Now, the Mishnah Berurah also brings what the Alter Rebbe says, and he says in a different sifkat. He says the Kamachrin cost of the Tvei others lachatchil l'kadosh al yayin. There are some Akrainim, interesting in the footnotes, doesn't bring the Alter Rebbe. He just brings the Gra and the Chai Adam, whatever. He says that it's better l'kadosh al yayin kodim tiyosudayim kudas ha'machaber. Why? It was that Medina l'chadeis. So he brings exactly what Alter Rebbe says. If you want to be yotzei all the day, all the things, so you first make kiddush and then you wash. And then he says, yeah, there are people that do this. There are those that follow this thing. But he says an actual point. What if you did it b'di'evet? Even according to this opinion, b'di'evet, if you already washed, what should you do? Yes, but yeah, that if you already washed, that even though so he's saying that if you, even according to those opinions, so he's saying, but the Evid, if you wash before, then you should still make Kiddush al Yayin, and then make Hamutz. You should not make Kiddush al Pas. You're not be Yotzel l'Divrei HaKol, because according to the other opinion, you should make Kiddush al Pas if you wash. This detail out there doesn't say that if b'di'evet, if you washed already, you should make Kiddush al Yayin, and then eat the hamotzi. It doesn't say that, and Alter Rebbe doesn't make that at that point. Maybe according to Alter Rebbe, he would hold that no, that maybe you want to be Yotzel Divrei HaKol. So according to the first opinion, even according to the second opinion, if you wash, you could still make Kiddush al bread. Still okay. There's nothing wrong with making Kiddush al bread on the hamotzi. So maybe the Alter Rebbe doesn't agree with that point. Whatever, it doesn't say anything, so I can't. So the shaila is, so what comes out from here is that according to the Alter Rebbe, it would seem that the best way, the correct way, is to make Kiddush, even though minik pashut. So there's a minik pashut, it's a general minik that you should first make. You should first minik pashut. You first wash and then make Kiddush and then hamotzi. But he says it's better to follow the Divrei HaKol. You should be machmer, and even though you're going against the minik, you should. This is what Divrei HaKol. So the Alter Rebbe seems it's better.
That's what's not. The Alter Rebbe doesn't have to say that, but the it's fine because he said already the iker is like the shita that you wash your hands first.
Yeah, no, but what about should you make Kiddush al Yayin or al Pas?
No, but once you wash the iker, he said the iker. What does it say? The iker is to wash, and then to make Kiddush on wine, and then to eat the bread. He said already the iker is a soy, and then.
No, but is it better? Maybe it's better to make Kiddush al Pas. Once you wash,
1 second, but
you want to be a tzedek.
No, but he says the iker is according to that sheet.
But if you want to, be machmer, maybe it's better to make it.
But if you already washed,
I didn't say for sure. I'm saying it's possible.
Basically, it wouldn't make sense if the Alter Rebbe says the iker is azoy, and then right away.
But maybe if you want to, whatever. Okay, I'm not saying. So the shaila is, so if the Alter Rebbe is quoting the Ramah says yesh lito, he says yochel lito, and which is it's a nafkamina. Why does the Alter Rebbe change the lashon? So first I have to know how much time do I have, because if we're talking really to answer it properly, you have to go to the Mekayros to understand with the Gemara and but if I have to be Mekatzer, then I'll be Mekatzer. Okay. So the Nekuda is like this. Yeshleimer that Bechlal the Alter Rebbe is not quoting the Ramah, at least not at this point, not Yachalito. If you look at the footnote, so here in the footnote he brings in the new Shulchan Aruch, he brings the Ramah, but that's the last Mocker, the Shkolkin. Yeah, it's a Tosfos, Rabbeinu Tam, Beri, and Minik Rosh, and the Rashba, and then the Benjamin's Ramah. Because in the original, look in the old print, doesn't bring the Ramah in the Mocker. Only in the new print they bring the Ramah. So what the point is like this. What's the machlokes between?
What's the Mocha, the original?
It doesn't bring the Ramah. It just brings the Tam,
That's the-
Ri, B'Taisvis in the old.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Minik Rosh. It doesn't bring the Ramah. And here he brings the Ramah.
And what's the Mocha of the Ramah?
Oh, the Mocha is from there.
From those.
Yeah, from there. But you think like this. You have to look in the Beis Yosef and the Darkei Moshe. There is a. I'm trying to be Mekatz, so I have to figure out how to say this without thinking. The Beis Yosef brings these shittas that hold that he could be that he should first wash and then make kiddush and then he brings these shittas. In the Shulchan Aruch, the Machaber doesn't bring them. Only in the Beis Yosef he brings those shittas. What does he say about them? Because the Torah says that the Rosh would do this minig Rosh. He would wash, then make kiddush, and that was minig Rosh. So the Beis Yosef says that the minig Rosh doesn't mean this was his regular practice. It would just be amal. It would happen. Sometimes he did it that way. It doesn't have to be that way. Then he brings the Tshuvas Rashba. The Tshuvas Rashba says that we never saw anyone holding himself back from doing this besides on El Pesach. So he's medayik for the lashon. That strange lashon. No one ever held himself back from doing it besides means that there wasn't a regular practice. Some people did it at certain times. Comes to Darkei Moshe and he quotes the same Tshuvas Rashba, and he says, "Miyomai, I never saw anyone that made kiddush before washing." In his Mekila, wherever there was no such thing, you always wash and then make kiddush. So Kumta is that according to the Ramah, he learned the Rashba. In quotes the Rashba. This is the Zraya. They're using the Ramah uses the Rashba to say that this is how it should always be done. This is the way you do it. And he says, and the Beis Yosef is saying, no, it's not always. Sometimes you can do it if you want to. So Ibazoi, you see clearly that according to the Beis Yosef, the way he learns the Binatam and the Ri and the Vinegar Rush, all that is not that this is the way it has to be done, so it should be done. It means you could do it that way. You could do it this way or that way. So when the Alter Rebbe says Yochel, he's not quoting the Ramah. Ramah doesn't hold you should Yochel. He holds, yes, that's the way you do it. Because Miyomai, I never saw anyone doing it any other way. That's the Ramah's shita. But the Alter Rebbe is not quoting him. But afterwards, when he says Zachen Aminik Pashut, that is from the Ramah. Yeah, that's from the Ramah. The Aminik Pashut is from the Ramah. But when he says Yochel, that's from the Beis Yosef. And so now we understand that there could be a nafkamina. Okay, I said already the nafkamina could be if you're already washed, if you should. Yes, limit. This could be a nafkamina between if you learn like the Ramah, or you quoting from the Beis Yosef, whether you should try to be yotzel to Yaakov or not. That was.
Are there kehilos now that do that way? They wash first.
I think so.
There are. Yes.
You wash.
Okay. Where's the shkoyach?
One more thing I wanted to say that we see one Gabaldic thing is that one word of the Alter Rebbe, whoever knows is a Yochel. It's not the source you think it is, which is the Pasha is the Ramah. No, it's the one word of the Alter Rebbe. See the Sheni Azav of the Alter Rebbe that changes the whole pshat and why our minhag is that we don't do it that way. If you follow the Ramah, Itaki should do it that way. First wash, but if you're following the Alter Rebbe shita, it's only Yochel, then it's not. Yeah, if you haven't, you could do it. Yeah. What?
That's the opening of that.
What?
There's no wine.
Well, there's no wine. Obviously, you should make on chal. I'm saying if there is wine, what should you do? Should you first wash? According to the Ramah, you should first wash, even if you have wine. Yeah.
This is shkoyach. Now we have the great COVID, great schus to have Rabbi Banon. The Tosha came all the way from Laval to Chazak, learning the Torah, Malcolm Torah. And he's going to speak about the mitzvah of Dalet Minim. Yigdiel.
Just בהמשך, what was said, that מגלגלים זכות על ידי זכאי, I thank שוחט, and also the מארגן of all כינוס תורה, of Zalmanov, of Hashem, they keep for years to mamshich, what the Rebbe was mechazik to do, and Levi not feeling well. The truth is, I was mad. Also, I really am not feeling well. But Baruch Hashem, I made it because it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. After Yom Tov, it's Torah. Anyways, I heard a word interesting that we know that whatever we do, any Yamim Tovim, Shulchan says that יש מקום להדר. We have to be mehader. Marshal, someone is not makpid on Pas Yisrael, should be mehader on Aseres Yemei Tshuva. He's not makpid on Basar Halal. He has to be makpid on Basar Halal. That's Yosef, whatever. So that's between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. What is, we have, so that's the way to behave. But nobody talks about how do we have to behave from Yom Kippur to Rosh Hashanah. That means what we do, or whatever we do, through the Yomim Tovim, through each mitzvah, sukkah, lulav, babini, whatever, so it should give us, the koach for the whole year, and that's the main thing. So just want to. I try to do the Kitzur. The truth is a big people, but let's say the Kitzur. We just did the mitzvah of Arba Minim. And there is a whole chakira. What's exactly the mitzvah? So the Torah says, the mitzvah is to take. What means to take? Like Netila, and the bracha says, that means the inyan is to take and to hold the lulav. But we know that after taking the lulav, there is another mitzvah, another gather of ninuim. So now the question is, what's the main mitzvah? Is it connected? That means it's meyakev. If it's connected to Netilas Lulav that I have to do Ninuim, or Stam, just the inyan of holding a Lulav, I fulfill the mitzvah. I did the mitzvah. For that, we have a few mekoros to see what exactly, what do we learn from that, and what exactly we hold. So the truth is, where do we find the first time that we talk about Ninuim? There is a few places. There's a Mishnah in Masechet Sukkah in Mem Beis. The Mishnah says like this: Katan hayodea lemanea hayav velula. If a Katan knows how to do the Ninuim, so then hayav velula. What does it mean? The Baraita, Mamshik after. The Bible says not only lulav, in Mevin, he understands how to use the talis, chayav v'tzitzis. If he understands, if he talks, chayav aviv lelamdot Torah. He has to teach him. And if he knows how to be menanea, he has to buy him the lulav. Chayav v'lulav. He has to buy him the lulav. So we understand here, it looks like a chora. that the first mitzvah is, the main mitzvah is, נינוע. Mishnah says, חי. הקטן יודע לנענע. Also we find in brachos, in Daf Lamed, that there is a whole discussion when we have to do mitzvah, a mitzvah bo bayom, mitzvah tayom, when does it start? Marshall breathe, when do we do it breathe? In the morning, when the etzem mitzvah is after nets, like davening after nets, any mitzvah, shofar after nets. It says bayom, yom, so we understand after nets. The beti eved, the amud hashachar. So hayot tzela derech. Some chalamoid, someone is going away, and it's early. So it says, even not chalamoid, even Rosh Hashanah, he goes somewhere that he could go, he could walk. If it's before nets, מביאים לו שופר ותוקע. Even bring them a shofar, he could do tears. מביאים לו לולב ומנענע. So again, we find that the lashon ninua looks at the lashon ninua. It's more. That's the main mitzvah. That's the main thing. The ninua. Maybe when we see a Rambam, when we go to the Rambam brings that I just want to bring the lashon of a Rambam. So Rambam says, מי שיגביה 4 ימים אלו, בין שהגביהן כאחז, בין בזה אחזה, בין בימין, בין בשמאל יצא. Anyway, you took, מגביה the 4 ימים, יצא. There is one condition. It has to be בדרך גידולן, the way it grows. If it's not בדרך גידולן, then לא יצא. So that's the only condition. So we understand from a Rambam. So the main mitzvah here is netila. You just have to hold, to take it, and we also see the Tosfos brings also is much about the over l'asiyatan. We understand that any mitzvah that we do, we have to do, so we say a bracha. Obviously, the bracha is the Rabbanan, even though the mitzvah is the Raisa. Like tefillin, like any bracha that we say, beside the benching, after eating bread, or there's a machlokes harishonim if birchas Torah is also the Rabbanan or the Raisa. All of poskim say that birchas Torah is the Rabbanan, but the main, so any bracha that we say is the Rabbanan, but we have to say the bracha over l'asiyatan before we do the mitzvah. So the Tosfos discuss exactly how should we do it. If you hold it, ben shegbiya zeh, ben shegbiya echad, afilu lo biyachad. So he took the hadassim, and then he took the lulav, or he took the araba. Doesn't make any difference. It's yotze one after the other one. Zeh achar zeh. Okay, we understand. Mitzvah min abuvchar is legodotam, to take them together. But even bezeh achar zeh. So that means the main. So how do you take the lulav and you say a bracha? How do you do that? It's very, very simple. So in Ken. So maybe the Tosfos want to understand that the main mitzvah is not, you don't fulfill the mitzvah when you take only the lulav. The mitzvah is done by the end, that means by the minuim. But then the Tosfos is doche, and he says we have two ways. Two ways. One way is to hold the lulav and not to hold the esrog, and to leave the esrog the way we do. We take the lulav, we say the bracha, and then we take the esrog and we do it together. The Tosfos bring another way. You take the lulav, and then we will the two other minims. Then you take the esrog, and you take it ups and down. So then you are not interested because it's not there gidula. Then you make the bracha, and then you bring it the right way. So there are two ways how to do it. The Sfaradim do the second way. And the Ashkenazim do Chabad too. They do the first way. That means you leave the lulav, you leave the esrog, You say the bracha, and then you take, and then you shake. So now the question is, if you say the bracha and you took the lulav, so kiyem et mitzvah. That's ulkachtem lachem. So then we have to see further Rambam. What does that Rambam say? Umitzvah kihilchata. So that's the hemshech. So that means, according to Rambam, you could take any one of the minim, afilu bezeh achar zeh, and you did a mitzvah. But the hemshech umitzvah kihilchata, שהגביה אגודה של 3 מינים, ימין ותבוא בשמאל, ויוליך ויביא ויעלה ויוריד וינענע לולב. And then he gives all the set. So now we could understand that according to our Rambam, there is a mitzvah min Torah. Mitzvah min Torah ulkachtem lachem. Just you take, you hold, and that's it. But then mitzvah min hamuvchar, it's, as he said, tilchasa. So then yagbia. Then you have to do the ninui. And the question is, where do we know the ninui from? The Gemara asked by the Mishnah that Aviv Katan שיודע לנענע, the Gemara asked, ninui man datashme, where do we learn ninui from? בכלל. In the Torah we don't see any pasuk that speaks about ninui. Okay, but since the Mishnah brings it, so we understand that the ninuim is important. But ha'im ze me'akev? It's not me'akev, that's the question. And there's another question, that if we say the bracha, do we have to do ninuim right away? So there's 3 shittos. According to a Rambam, it looks like lav davka. You could take the lulav, say the bracha, take the lulav, hold it, and then you do the ninuim later, and then you don't have to say a bracha again. According to the first, he said that you have to do the ninuim right away. And there's also a Mahari, there's a Rishonim also that they bring, that the ninuim are me'akev. That means you have to hold the lulav and then to do the ninuim right away. And if you don't do right away, they hold that maybe you have to say again the bracha. Because the first bracha that you said by netilas lulav, it's not, you didn't do the mitzvah, you didn't fulfill the mitzvah. The truth is, the Rosh, the Ran, all the Rishonim, all the Rishonim, they hold that netilas lulav is the oraisa. Ninuim is the Rabban. The question is, do we have to do ninuim right away after the bracha, or you could do it after? Baruch Hashem, a lot of us here is to say the bracha on the Rebbe's lulav, and we didn't have time to do ninuim, right? We said the bracha, and that's it. If you who did ninuim? So that means we said the bracha, and then we went to shul to daven. And then later, we did ninuim by Hallel. That was the seder. So mashma that it's not a problem. It comes like the Rambam. The Rambam says it's not me'akev. For sure, it's a good. It's a mitzvah min hamuvchar. But the etzem mitzvah, the ikar mitzvah, is to hold, to take the lulav. Ulkachtem lachem. That's it. We see also that there is a Machasit HaShekel, Siman, on the Choslulav that says, very interesting. And it tries to bring a re'aya and to say that from the din of that the Mishnah says that by your cotton, Aviv Chayav Chanchor Yitnos Lo Lulav and or Chayav Lulav Im Yodea Lenanea. He says you can't bring a re'aya from there. Why? Because we are talking here about a katan that he didn't come to the gil that he knows how to daven. If he knows how to daven, so then it's mitam chinuch, and then he'll do the Hallel later. So here We are talking about the katan that knows ninuim. Yodea lenanea, that's all. He doesn't know how to daven, doesn't know how to follow the hallel, doesn't know how to say the hallel. So that's why by katan, the ikar and mitzvah for him, now right after the bracha is to do the ninuim. The Machatzit HaShekel wants to say, we can't learn from the whole Mishnah that says that katan sheyodea lenanea, chayav belulav, we can't learn from there, we can't learn for us. Katan is din miyuchad. So the Kaf HaChaim brings, very interesting, that in the Sidur HaRashash, that it says very clear that miyad le'achar bracha menanea. Right after the bracha, he does the ninuim. And then later, by Hallel, again, says the ninuim, and he brings from the Arizal that there is a number of ninuim that we have to do, and it includes the ninuim that we do after the bracha, right after the bracha, and the ninuim that we do by the Hallel. At Pe'asod, so we have to do all those ninuim. And it brings also from the Sha'ar Kavanot, from the Arizal. So we understand that the halacha, also there is, the halacha brings that the shiur halulav. What the shiur of halulav? Shiur halulav is arba tfachim. Why arba tfachim? Dalet tfachim. Gimel tfachim, we need for the tuminim. And then we need one more tefach up, kedei lananea, sheyebo shiur ninua. So we understand from the Gemara and from the halacha too. So the whole inyan, why the lulav has to be higher, the tefach higher, because of ninuim. Now we see by ninuim there are a few minhagim. That the ikar ninuim, and as we learned from the Rambam, they have to be done right after the bracha. And by Hoshayanos, by Ana Shem Oshiana, there is a senasmacht after the posuk or whatever. Just they shake the lulav. And some communities, they don't do ninuim by Ana Hashem Oshiana, they shake the lulav. And the ikar ninuim they do right after the bracha, the ninuim that we know how to do ninuim. The Rashi brings, why do we do ninuim? Well, what's the whole thing? What's the whole purpose of ninuim? Rashi brings it in the Gemara, kedei la'archik et haruchos. It's an inyan of Archik et haruchos and the atal, the tlalim that's no good. So there is a whole thing that, because we know the avaminim come from mayim, and the whole thing is mayim. So I'm not going into the whole sugya now. So we understand that ninuim is not stam. Yesh mashu bezeh. That means there is a whole inyan connected to that. To understand, the truth is we could go on and on. There is very interesting people on it, but it's to be arichos. And if just to understand exactly that, what the difference does for us. Any mitzvah that we do, we understand there is a handshake, the thing that we have to do. Okay, the halacha, we know that the ikar mitzvah is to do netilas kuyim. That's the right. Ninuim is the Rabbanan. Any way that we do is the Rabbanan. That's clear. That's maskana le'alach. But the question is, if the halacha says in the Midinat Gemara that the shiur of the lulav has to be tefach more because of the ninuim, we know that all the shiurim are halacha leMoshe Misinai. So if we say that the shiurim are halacha leMoshe Misinai, so the ninua is the halacha leMoshe Sinai. If the whole reason why the lulav has to be higher because of ninua, and the shiurim are halacha leMoshe Sinai, so then ninua is also halacha leMoshe Sinai. The Tam Sofer is mechalek, and he says, yeah, no question about it, that the shiur of the lulav is of any shiurim, it's halacha leMoshe Sinai. but he has a very interesting view. And he says that even if we don't do the ninua, we don't use and we don't do the ninua, but the lulav has to be kedei ninua. It has to have kedei ninua, even if we don't do the ninua. So the raisa, it has to have a certain, the shiur has to be done, has to be the way it has to be, because halacha leMoshe b'Sinai. But the ninua has to be kedei ninua, even if you don't do ninua. So that's the diuk of the Tam Sofer here. Very interesting. So we see, and he says, the Tam Sofer says, and also he paskan that the ninua is the Rabbanan. It's the Rabbanan. The shiur lulav is halacha leMoshe b'Sinai, but the ninua is the Rabbanan. There is a sikha, very interesting sikha of the Rebbe. Was said in Tafshin Chav Gimel, Simchas Torah Tafshin Chav Gimel, and the Rebbe speaks about Ninuim. I'm sure you learned that sikha. It's a Chelek Dalet. You put the sikhos. And the Rebbe explains exactly where do we find Ninua. It says in two aspects. One, and that's the lashon of the Rebbe, he says in the sikha that when you see Yidden, they sit together, Jews sitting together, mitnaneim, and they move, it's a proof that they're learning. And we find by Yidden, when we learn, we move. We move. When we daven, we move. So we find two kinds of ninuim. Yehudim mitnaneim, b'shat halimud, and ninua of the lulav. Ma kesher? What's the kesher b'chlal? And the Rebbe goes on and on in the sikha. It's a very long sikha, but I'm like to say, mamash b'kitzur. The Rebbe brings the medrash. The medrash says very clear that the lulav, the arba minim b'chlal, and lulav is dome le talmid chacham, dome le Torah. And that's why, agav, we say the bracha on the lulav. Why do we say the bracha on the lulav? Why do we say al netilas lulav? Why we don't say al netilas arba minim? Chachamim didn't know how to be medayek in the loshon of arba minim, and ze me'akev et ze. If we don't have one and one is possible, so there is no. When a Rambam says that he holds ze achar, they not together, that means he has four of them in front of him. But if one is missing, is me'akev. So how come the bracha is al netilas lulav and not al netilas arba minim? The Gemara answers, because he's gavoa, the back. And so what if he's gavoa? So the Rebbe explains, comes to that medrash that says, it's the medrash rabbi, Vaikra Rabbi, that says that the lulav dome letalmid chacham. The esrog is dome mi sheyesh bo Torah ve'yesh bo masim tovim. The Maaseh, and we understand what's the Hadas, we understand what's the Arava. But the Maaseh, who's better here? The Esrog or the Lulav? Esrog, he has both. He has Torah and Masim Tovim. Yesh bo Tam, yesh bo Reach. So how come the Lulav is Hu Gavoa, and we said the Bracha on the Lulav? So the Rebbe explains that to become an Esrog, you have to be a Lulav. That means you have to learn. To have Masim Tovim, you have to learn. It doesn't come together. For sure it comes together. But without Torah, without learning, you are nothing. You are nothing. So you have to sit and learn. And then so you have to be a lulav. And then you become an Esro. But first you have to be a lulav. But more than that. Then the Rebbe says, then what do we do? What do we do with the lulav? Ogdim. So we attach all, and we do ninua. But who's the main thing? Who's the main menanea here? It's the lulav, because we are busy making sure that the lulav has a shiur. He has a shiur ninua. We don't talk about the menanea, the other meaning. The whole thing of ninua is the lulav, not the other meaning. you don't need to be מנענע. אלא אם כן, when you are מנענע the lulav, בדרך ממילא, so the hadassim and the arava, also you be מנענע. Why? Because עובדים אותם ביחד. So the Rebbe says, very interesting, it says that the lulav הוא גבוה מכולם because he's a תלמיד חכם, he's a ben Torah, he's the one who learns. And when even an arava that has no tam velo reach, or the hadas has reach velo tam, and it shows about all kind of hidden, but when we attach ourselves to the lulav, to the Talmid Chacham, when we do the ninuim, when he does the ninuim, so hu me'orer et hakol, so he takes with him together. And Rebbe brings very interesting, and he says, "Ma inyan ninua? What's the inyan of ninua? Why do we do the why when we learn we daven? Why do we move? Why do we shake?" He brings the Zohar. Rebbe says that in the Zohar brings that it's a pasuk in Mishle. Ner Hashem nishmat adam. We understand that our neshama, it's ner Hashem, and the ner, a flame, moves. That's the teva of the flame, to move. When we start learning, automatically we give chayus to our neshama. That's a flame, and it starts to move. And that chayus is not only for the flame, but is mamshich the whole goof. And that's why we move when we daven, when we learn, that's why we move. That's the shaking. So the Rebbe explains that all inyan of the goof. So the truth is by coming out of the Sukkot and Simchas Torah. The all inyan of Simchas Torah is pashut to be miyakeret, as the Rebbe explains that it's dancing, everybody dance with the Torah. But b'derech klal, who's nehene from the Torah, who has the chayus from the Torah, the Talmid Chacham, who knows, he's a Chacham, he knows, he understands, and he understands the Tamei Torah, and Adam Pashut. It's not so simple. By Simchas Torah, everybody, even the Pashut Sheba Pshutim, he takes the Sefer Torah. Even if the Sefer Torah is closed, he dances with the Sefer Torah. So then he becomes one with the Sefer. And that's the only ninuim, that's the whole thing of Simchas Torah. But that is to bring and to connect ourselves with the lulav. And who's the lulav? The Tzaddik Ador. He is the lulav. But so when we connect ourselves to the Tzaddik Ador, so automatically when he moves, automatically we move together. The ninuim that he does, and he goes up and up, so he pulls us with him together. So that's all inyan of learning. And Baruch Hashem, I see the name Kishmo Kenhu Yagdil Torah. It's very important to have this medrash, like people have to come and sit and learn. And even if you work the whole day, but at least you know that you have to finish the day by sitting and learning. I mentioned before about Birchas HaTorah. Birchas HaTorah Bichlal, it's all inyan that the Gemara brings in the Dorian, that Alma Charva Haaretz talks about the Beis HaMikdash HaRishon. Mipnei shelo birchu b'Torah techila. That means not because they didn't learn. And he brings, the Maharsha brings B'Shem Rabbeinu Yoina, שלא הייתה חשובה ביניהם. They learned, but לא הייתה חשובה ביניהם. That's why they didn't say ברכה. על זה חרבה הארץ, נחרב בית המקדש. על זה. So the whole inyan of Birkas HaTorah is a whole shayla. We say, so everybody has to say Birkas HaTorah once a day in the morning. So there is a question. Any bracha that we say, and there is no hemshech, we say, we say the bracha, and then there is a sitachadas. So we have to say, and we do. Let's say we put on the talis, yeah. So that's why it's better always by breeze or whatever that we know that we're going to use or not. Talis is better to take some of the talis, not to have a shail on the bracha. But But let's say we do according to Shulchan Aruch. You take off the tefillin, you go to the Beis HaKisei, it's a Hadas, you have to say again a bracha. So how come that Birchas Torah, we say a bracha in the morning, then we don't learn the whole day, and even if we learn Yotze with Birchas Kohanim that we say, and then we go to work the whole day, and not in Klei Kodesh, you're not a Klei Kodesh, you go to work whatever, and then you come at night after a whole day, you sit and learn, and you don't have to say a bracha. How come it's not a Hadas? Because the Ikar is, what's the Ikar, what's the Tafel? The Tafel is you work because you have to work. You have to go to work for Parnasa. That's the Tafel. The Ikar is the Kovea Itim La Torah. That you have to be Kovea Itim La Torah. That's the Ikar. לא משנה, אחד המעבד, אחד הממעיט, doesn't make any difference. But you have to be Kovea Itim La Torah. There is the first Rav in Morocco who graded the first Shluchim, Lipsko, when he came to Morocco in the city is called Meknes. That was the first yeshiva. And it was very, very helpful. Very happy. He had the yeshiva, he had his own yeshiva. So when Lipsko came, he gave him his yeshiva to be mamshech his yeshiva. And he wrote to Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, very interesting. And there it says in Ilchos Talmud Torah, it says, Hayav Adam Likva Itim Torah. What does it mean? Hayav Adam Likva Itim. Ma ze Likva Itim? Likva Itim, it says, when you know it's every day at the same time. It's not when you have time, when now I have an hour. No, you know that by night from 6 to 8, that's my kvius, from whatever. That's kovea itim la Torah. If you are not kovea itim la Torah, it's not called. Why? Because it's not chashuv. The same way he says, it has to be done in a way that you have to be kovea itim la Torah, and that's the only way to the only way to grow and to become esrog. That's the only way. That's what we have to do. So Mitzvah Hashem coming after, right after Simchas Torah. And I said at the beginning, the main thing that we have to know how to behave from Yom Kippur to Rosh Hashanah, next Rosh Hashanah. Not only the Aseret Yom Tshuva, but that's so. Mitzvah Hashem, all the purpose that we took, all the hamshachos that we have from all the mitzvahs that we did, Mitzvah Hashem will help us to grow and to become the Mashiach.
Oh yeah. Thank you very much. All the Rabbonim, all the Chassidim that came join us. We should be talking to the Beers from Chef Kenu because of now.